Hi everyone, this is Mark from Solo Games. Today we're going to spend some time and talk about the crash, the end of the world, Armageddon that is Fractured Crown booster boxes and pricing collapse and basically the abolishment of the map policy for at least Fractured Crowns. So for those that don't understand, what basically happened, right? So Weebs of the Shore released the print run numbers for FTC. They also, in addition to this, basically cut out all of the map policy requirement for FTC. So the map basically dictates that stores, anybody who's basically official, has to sell the booster boxes at a certain price. So I think the lockdown price was $72 a booster box of Fractured Crown, and the case I think was like $12.95, something like that, for a case of 18 booster boxes of Fractured Crown, right? But what happened, it was that on the open market, a bunch of boxes started appearing and basically pushed the entire market down. I mean, lower and lower and lower, to the point where a lot of stores who were trying to follow the policy of the MAP, minimum advertised pricing policy, ended up basically hurting themselves because they could not actually move their inventory. A lot of people were moving them. Now, probably next thing that a lot of people are going to ask is, well, why are these people selling the booster boxes for less than MAP, and why are they risking this, right? Well, part of this is because of what happened with the second part of the facts of what happens in the case of Fractured Crown. So Fractured Crown, Weebs of the Shore decided to do something different in that instead of having like one CSR or CUR, like the super special collector's rare card per 15 booster boxes around that rate, they instead did away with that and said, we're going to guarantee, well, they didn't really do away with it. They wanted to guarantee one CSR per case. Now, you can still get more than one CSR because of the, every 15 box thing, but there was at least one CSR guaranteed per box, which essentially means that once you hit your guaranteed CSR, your chances of hitting another CSR in the box is drastically lower. It is still possible, but it's lower. Like one of our friends open up his case and actually got 4 CSRs. So that's pretty crazy. But of course, that's not the norm. That's more of the exception, right? This is not what you should expect. So pretty soon, pretty quickly, players, stores, everybody caught on to this. So what you would see on the open market is people would start opening boxes. Once they hit the CSR, they would set the remaining boxes aside and then sell that off to other people. Now, that is a pretty crappy thing to do, but because again, that makes it so that not every booster box was created equal. Of course, that started basically being pushed onto the open market. The people who know they're selling soft boxes, we call these soft boxes, by the way, the ones that have had the one guaranteed CSR of the case taken out. The people who are selling these soft boxes know that their chance of getting a CSR is much lower than the people who are selling normal boxes. And so they're more willing to sell it below map pricing, right? Just undercut each other, race to the bottom type of thing, right? And so essentially this was happening, and it was so bad that Weebs of the Shore decided to protect and help the stores that were following the policy to just do away with the map policy altogether. In fact, in draft 1, version 1 of the map policy that I think a lot of people missed, I myself including, basically the version 1 of the policy actually stated exactly the reason for abolishing the policy was because that they were seeing people were opening cases for the CSR, for the one guaranteed CSR, and then selling the rest of the boxes. Now that statement has been taken out of it. I think part of it just because, Weebs doesn't really want to promote a specific bad behavior out there in the market and tell people how to cheat the market essentially. So that has been taken out. But the essence of the change on the map policy is still true, which is, well, they want to protect stores who felt like they were following the policy but could no longer sell boxes because so many stores had already started selling way below map. I mean, we're talking like 68, 65, etc., and just kept on going lower as they raced to the bottom. Now, as soon as the map policy has been abolished and compounded with that, the print run numbers were released. Essentially what happened was that, there was a market panic. A lot of stores looked at all this data, a lot of players looked at all this data and decided to start selling boxes en masse. I mean, it got so bad I think it was Friday, Friday or Thursday night last week. Basically, the price got pushed so low. There were, on the open market, I think the booster boxes were going for about $40 each, $39.99 and $39.95 were some prices I was seeing. And there were more than 100 booster boxes at that price. Again, whether these are soft or normal or hard booster boxes, who knows? But you basically, for that kind of pricing, you have to assume it's a soft box. Talking to some of the friends, they did some estimations and EV and stuff like that. They think a soft booster box is worth about $40. Now, again, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know how much of that math is verifiable. I have not personally verified it, so I can't really trust it for sure. But that's basically what it was. Now, the map policy does still, even today, maintain a minimum advertised price for the booster case. However, as we can already see on the open market, the cases are now going for just shy of $1,000 already. It's still below map. Now, I think that makes sense. I think in general, because again, if the booster boxes are numerous, remember there's two compounding factor, the whole soft booster box, but the fact that they release print run numbers. Now, the print run numbers was a lot higher, I think, than a lot of players anticipated. Now, to be fair to Waves of the Shore, the print run numbers are made that way because they expect the game, of course, to grow in the future, and this is a one print set. Now, you may be asking, well, why print one print run set? Why not just print to demand, right? Like Dawn of Ashes, where there's a second print wave. Part of the reason, my guess, is that, well, the box is actually different. You can see the configuration, the number of cards, how the packs are, how the cases even put together. They're different. And of course, having different configurations require different material, require different printers. And this is by and large why, if you look at different card games like Magic the Gathering, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc., they have very similar boxes all the time. And the reason you do this is because, again, the printers don't have to be reconfigured to make new packs. They basically make the same packs. They look the same. They have the same size, etc. So, of course, having printers do one thing and another is going to be different. You may, of course, sometimes use different printers. Magic does this all the time, where if they have to print a specific set of packs that are thicker or different, they have to use, for example, Belgium printers instead of the Japan printers or the US printers. They have to use different printers to achieve that goal. So there's that. The second part of it is also, you have to understand, Weebs is a small company. It's a super new company that's just getting everything, going. And for them, logistics doesn't work like a large company. They don't have, for example, shipping all set up in a way where it's super streamlined and they can get these things through. The fear is if there's a second set where they have to go print more, let's say third set, and then go back and print some second sets, they may not be able to get those boxes into like different regions of the world fast enough. So of course, that's why print all they think they will need ahead of time, and then that's it. That's the whole print run. Now, of course, given that the print run was a lot larger than probably players expected, in fact, it's like larger than the two waves of Dawn of Ash reprints, right? So Dawn of Ash Altar plus the second run of the Altars. It's larger than that set. So of course, all the players started panicking. This is the second reason why the booster boxes have crashed. So those two factors, that the pulling of the CSR compounding with the print run numbers, really made all the players kind of scared. Or I should say collectors, because the players probably don't care because they look at it and say it's cheap boxes. But the people who are paying a certain amount, thinking that these boxes are going to hold price and go up, like stores, are probably scared and panicking. That's a lot of the reason why you see on the open market, even after the recovery, it's about open market for Fractured Crown booster boxes is sitting around 55. So yes, definitely better than 40. And because somebody came in and just bought I think all 90 remaining of those $40 booster boxes, and then push the price back up to around 55. But the second part is, will it hold, right? We don't actually know. Now, I think this is a good time to talk about map policy, intent, and reality. The intent, of course, the map policy is to protect stores, to basically have a formal from the store, from the owners of the game, a statement of holding the line, telling all the stores, we're going to hold the line. The line stands at 72. Nobody sell below the 72, right? That's the whole idea. Of course, the problem with that is it only works because of two things. Number one, the store has teeth, right? Punishment. Essentially, if you don't hold the line, then we're going to prevent you from even standing in the line with us. You don't get product. You will have secondary, you're not going to get preferential treatment in the future for selling products and getting shipments, etc., right? We're going to cut you off from distribution. The problem, though, with that kind of understanding is that, well, if there's too many people breaking this rule, you essentially can't really enforce it, and here's why. Look at Weebs as it is where they are. They're a small company. They're trying to basically edge into a very crowded environment. Now, look, just ignoring Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon, the big three, you have a ton of other small card games that are just coming out now. Lorcana, Sorcery, Cryptic, you got like MetaZoo, Flesh and Blood. They're all edging for that like kind of middle tier zone and trying to figure out who's going to become a top dog, right? You don't want to cut out like half the stores because they all broke the map policy. This is a little bit tricky, right? So essentially, this is how governments work. This is how most things works. In fact, if you want to know how this works really well, watch the movie Ants. Not that how it ends, but the beginning part, right? DreamWorks Ants, like old school movie. Like I think I watched it when I was 10 or something. Anyways, basically how the beginning works is, the grasshoppers, like what, 20 of them? But a whole colony of like hundreds of ants can't fight against the grasshoppers. They have to obey because, again, they don't know that they have the power. But if many, many ants step out of line, right, and refuse to help the grasshopper collect food, etc., then guess what happens? The grasshopper can't do anything. They have to escape because that's the teeter-totter, right? So the policy exists and the kind of like obeying of that rule exists because weeps have teeth to go enforce the policy, but if too many people are pushing the other way, it definitely flips it. Even with the teeth, what are you going to do? You're really going to enforce that policy against all those stores, killing your game while doing it? It's not going to happen. So that's where this gets a little tricky. The power is not always in the creator of the game's hands, etc. Essentially. Now, some of the obvious factors of what happened, right? So we talked about the soft boxes and CSRs. We talked about like the race to the bottom, that's why the pricing went to the place it was, right? And then again, just like I said before, map policy only works if you enforce it. Now let's talk about some of the hidden factors, reasons why essentially like stores would do this at all, right? Number one, I think the print run was large. And the large print run not only signaled that there's just more products, the product is also fresh into the market. Now, I'm sure Weeps of the Shore has kept some stuff back in their own warehouses for pricing, for, like RMA, return to manufacturer type of things, if they need to do replacements type of things, and of course for future events and a little bit of inventory for whatever they need to do. But what it appears to, I'm not saying this is 100% facts because I don't have those facts. What it does appear is that a good chunk of that inventory, let's say like 75, 80% of the inventory of this print run is in the market now. And whether that's true or not is not important. But what's important is the fact that, well, it feels that way. And why does it feel that way? Because if you go to TCG Player, you look at the listings, you see how there's tons of stores listing like 30, 40, 50, 60 boxes, right? And of course, that just means there's a heavy push from the supply side. I saw this with Tales of Aria. I saw this with essentially Monarch First Edition. We're talking about Flesh and Blood now. I saw this with some of the sets where I knew it was overprinted, right? For example, I think was Dominaria United, Collector's Booster, right? Those kind of boxes, I saw a ton of product come to market as soon as basically people started seeing like, hey, there's some price fluctuations. You know what I didn't see this with? Neon Dynasty Collector's Boosters. And that booster box held price pretty firmly until the second print wave that never happened, of course it happened, came and actually pushed all the price down. And that's basically what you can see. So while we don't know how much was released to market, I do believe a good chunk of it was released to market, and this is why it's causing this. And part of this is because a lot of stores ordered a lot, right? Essentially, a lot of the stores went through and says, hey, you know what? We didn't get enough Dawn of Ashes. So we're going to order more Fractured Crown. They're pre-ordering the stuff. They're telling their distribution, I'm going to take 18 box cases, 19, 20, 1,000 cases. Well, essentially what that means is that distribution then comes to Weebs and say, well, I have customer orders for over 2,000, 5,000 cases, so I'm going to need 5,000 cases. And then Weeb says, you know what, you're going to get 3,000, right? They do the actual distribution. Distributor then come back and tell each store what they're going to get, and that's basically how this whole distribution model works, right? Essentially, because the request was so high, Weebs decided to push more of this product into the market, and that's again understandable. How does Weebs know that the stores didn't actually need this product? It's kind of a weird situation for everyone. The other part of this too is you have to understand the liquidity issue of stores. So if you're just an individual, evil investors, whatever, like me, you may not see this. You actually could understand this a little bit too, but stores really have a liquidity issue. When they run their product sales, etc., they have to really get rid of the product as soon as possible. The thing that stores don't want to do is sit on inventory. This is not a goal for stores because stores aren't investing in their collectibles. They're trying to move products because the more they move, the more they can take their margins. That means more money can be spent on the next set. A lot of stores don't have millions of dollars to just sit there and continue to buy product and store into warehouse. So there's two factors, right? Number one is cash on hand. They don't have a lot. They're floating a lot of inventory. And number two is going to be space because a lot of stores, their storage is going to be small, right? And so like you can pile just only so high in your store until you basically fill the entire store. And then nobody can get in, nobody can play, nobody can actually buy your product. So of course you want to be moving product as soon as possible. So stores really don't want to sit on old products. So essentially it is advisable and in their favor, even if they take a little bit of loss, to sell product at a loss than to sit on them for long term. And trust me, $40 a box, a booster box, is a loss. Now you can say soft box and all that stuff. I don't really want to talk about that too much because again, we can't guess and assume every store that's selling booster boxes at a certain price are selling soft boxes only. But a lot of the stores could be looking at the situation and saying they need liquidity, they need to liquidate their inventory quickly enough and then basically get themselves down to a certain point. And that's basically what a lot of stores have to do essentially when they're in this situation, okay? So that's how you understand. And that's partially why you can also see the pricing falling because stores have too much inventory on hand. Their players don't want to buy it anymore. They have to dump it onto market. And of course, if you want to get rid of something quickly, you have to be the lowest price, right? That's just, again, market economics, very simple stuff. So why am I not angry about this? Why am I not screaming through the camera telling you, hey, sell all your fractured crowns, sell everything GA is done, GA is crashing, everything, planes crashing, forest fire, I don't know what's going, buy insurance against your GA stock, right? Why am I not telling you this? Because I think partially because I expected this to happen. Now, I didn't expect it now. I did not expect it with fractured crown because no one could expect that. But I did say a long time ago, even earlier, I think my first impression video on GA, I mentioned there will be a moment. It's not if, it's when that something's going to happen that's going to critically shock the whole system, shock the inventory, shock everybody, all the players, etc., collectors, everybody. But what's going to be super important is how GA as a game comes out of this, right? I knew this was going to happen, but we need to see what Reaps do next. And how do they change? What do they change for next set? What are the things that they're taking into consideration, right? Are there basically going to be punishments for people who broke map policy this time? Maybe the first people who broke map policy are going to eat it the most. Or maybe if they could somehow figure out who's doing soft boxes and etc., punish those stores who are doing that kind of things. I don't know. It's a little harder to do that, but it's essentially possible, right? And while I'm talking about the stores, I do want to take a quick tangent and talk about something that I think is short-sightedness. A lot of these stores who are selling these boxes at a certain price and pulling out the CSR, guaranteed CSR, and selling the rest of the boxes online or to their own patrons, at their own local store, it's super short-sighted. Think about the players who are buying from you, that are your loyal customers. They're going to come to your store and they're going to buy boxes and realize these boxes have no hits. And they're going to, even if it's not true, they're going to assume that this is coming from a soft box because you think these players are stupid. They can go online. They can see your store is dumping 100 of these boxes at $55, $42, right? What does that mean? You're going to lose your patrons long term. And is that really good for your store? Unless you're about to go out of business and close the store anyways, you don't care. It really is a bad situation for your store. So my thinking is, I don't understand why stores would do this. I ran a patron sale as well for Fractured Crown. Every one of the patron boxes came from a sealed case that's freshly new. That's for the patrons. That's not for me. That's not for anyone else. So I don't open things. I don't try to hit soft or hard boxes. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. Because the reality is, if my patrons hit something good, they get a CSR or whatever, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to say, hey, Mark is super trustworthy. I'm going to buy more boxes from him. That's the whole point. You build this trust and you build this relationship, you build this business long term. It's not about short term. I don't care to go steal a CSR that's $500 at tops nowadays from my patrons to do what, right? I care about building that long term relationship because I know the business expands long term if I can basically prove to people I'm trustworthy. And that's the whole model that I built on, right? So tangent's done. Back to things to watch out for. Okay. The other thing you have to really think about is what is Weeps going to do for future sets? I'm really excited because set 3 is coming out, and set 3 is supposed to have a first edition and alter just like Dawn of Ashes. Now, it's going to be tricky, right? Given this fractured crown situation, things are going to change. I'm telling you right now, things are going to change. It's not going to be the same way as it was before. Do not assume anything that has happened for Dawn of Ashes to be exactly the same for the third set. We don't have a name yet, so we'll call it that. So temper your expectations. Make sure you understand it's not going to be the same. That's number one. Number two, the print runs, how they distribute, even if the cards are already printed, which I think they are probably at this point, even if the cards are printed or sent to the printer for printing, manufacturing, so they can't really change those pieces, there will be changes to how they do distribution. There will be changes to how they do shipping and availability, and very likely changes to how they do map policy. So be aware of that. Be understanding that, hey, things are going to change. And the exciting part is seeing how this company evolves with this information. Look, nobody's happy. I'm sure people at Weebs are very angry about, okay, maybe angry is too harsh. They're probably like, you know what, fuck it. They're probably super pissed off about this, right? Everybody's pissed off. Nobody wants to buy a booster box for $75 and realize next day it's like $44, right? Nobody feels good about that. Weebs doesn't want their players to feel this way. They definitely don't want their collectors to feel this way. So they're going to make changes. I'm sure of it. The question I have is whether those changes will matter. Is it too little, too late? And then what happens? And here's the thing. Do not be disappointed, guys, if set 3 also has issues. Remember, for Flesh and Blood, for many, many card games, that recovery sometimes takes more than one set. And I'm just, again, setting everybody's expectations exactly where they should be, which is you should understand if you like this game long term, that's why you're here anyways. And if you don't like this game long term, you should not put any money into it at all, because why are you trusting a company and a game that you don't even like, right? But if you think Fractured Crown, if you think Grand Archive has a future, then it doesn't matter what happens today, tomorrow, because in 10 years, even 5 years, we won't care. None of this stuff will really matter. In fact, this number, 41,400 Fractured Crown boxes, may become a very laughable number. We may look back and say, ha ha ha, that was such a small number. Look at the player base now. We should have bought more boxes. Could this be our essentially like alpha of, Magic the Gathering? Who knows, right? But all I'm saying is if you trust the game, you shouldn't treat it like it's a thing for you to flip every second, right? Oh, it went up a little bit, sell it. Oh, it went down a little bit. Okay, we gotta do not panic. Do not be this stupid Timmy. Hold the boxes. That's it. Mark Solar Games. I'm out. Stay classy.